What's up? I never shot from my iPad before, so I'm checking out this storyboard. But anyway, I'm back here. Brianka J, your girl, is back with another video. This time I'm reviewing a book that I read called Take My Hand. And I just wanted to come and talk about it because I really, really enjoyed reading it. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've been reading a lot of like business books, a lot of finance books, a lot of self-help books. So before in the new year, this is my first fiction. Of course, it's a historical fiction, of course, by a black woman. And yeah, so this is by Dolen Perkens. Cut off her name with the sticker. I hate when that happens. Dolen Perkens Valdez, and it says Montgomery, Alabama, 1973. Fresh out of nursing school, Sybil Townsend intends to make a difference, especially in her African American community. At the Montgomery Planning Clinic, she hopes to help women shape their destinies to make their own choices for their lives and bodies. But when her first week on the job takes her along a dusty country road to a worn-down one-room cabin, Sybil is shocked to learn that her new patients, Erica and India, are children just 11 and 13 years old. Neither of the Williams sisters have even kissed the boy, but they are poor and black, and for those handling the family's welfare benefits, that's reason enough to have the girls on birth control. As Sybil grapples with the role, she takes India, Erica, and their family into her heart, until one day she arrives at their door to learn the unthinkable has happened, and nothing will ever be the same for any of them. Decades later, with her daughter grown and a long career in her wake, Dr. Sybil Townsend is ready to retire, to find her peace, and to leave the past behind. But there are people and stories that refuse to be forgotten, that must be forgotten. Because history repeats what we don't remember. Inspired by true events and brimming with hope, Take My Hand is a steering exploration of accountability and redemption. Such a good book. I want to tell you more about it. Before we get started, make sure you comment, like, subscribe on this video so I can bring you more videos like this so we can continue to talk about books and show the world that we are definitely still reading and definitely still appreciating literature as much as we always have. Stay tuned. This is Take My Hand by Dolen Perkens Valdez. Okay, so in terms of characters, you have Sybil Townsend. You have her boyfriend, or kind of boyfriend. She's really weird with him, Ty. You also have Erica and India, who are about 13 and 11, and they're like the main characters, these little girls or patients that she kind of falls in love with in the most platonic, motherly way. You have her mother and her father. Her mother is an artist. Her father is a doctor. She listens to them a lot, and she actually still lives at home, so they have a big influence in her life. She has her friend who helps her break the case. She has her boss, her supervisor, who is a white woman who plays a major role in this. She also meets a lawyer, a white male lawyer, and he helps them to recognize the issues and try to get justice for the girls. So those are the major characters in the story, and they all work on each other a lot. But I think the major pinnacle. Oh, and Erica and India's dad, who Sybil grows a crush on. But the major character to know is like Erica, India, Sybil are the big three for me, and everything else kind of is like these subsetting stories, which are good, but in terms of like the historical fiction part and the conflict, it surrounds those three people. Okay, So basically in this story, what you have is Sybil Townsend coming straight out of nursing school. So we're young, right? A very young girl. She is going straight out of nursing school to work in a family planning clinic. But in her personal life, she's really struggling with the fact that she had an abortion. Her and her childhood friend Ty started a romantic relationship while she was in college. They started becoming very physical. She got pregnant and she made the choice, kind of without Ty's input, to have an abortion. When she comes back home, moves home, her and Ty's family and her family are still very close. So she can't really break connections with Ty, and Ty still wants a relationship with her, but she's dealing with her own internal turmoil. Now at work, this kind of plays out, right? Because she started working at a family planning clinic, and she's like, I want to help these people understand their sexual rights, their education, their options. And she's given patients, and some of them she has to drive to. That's when you meet India and Erica. She gets to this house up in the countryside of Montgomery. She's a very astute young woman who comes from a higher class society. But she's never really been in the poorest parts of her country, nor has she been around very poor black people, right? She knows that they exist and she wants to fight for them, but she's never encountered it in person. This is her first time. She goes in the house. The house is in disarray. They're very, very poor, almost nearly sharecropping land from the white man in the neighborhood. And, she gets there and she gets depot shots to this 11-year-old and this 13-year-old, one of which had never had a period in her life, and both of which are virgins. And as she starts to realize this, she says, well, this is weird. This is uncanny for me. I don't think this is normal. What she then finds out with Ty's help and her coworkers' help is that the drug isn't FDA approved, and these girls probably don't really need to be using it because there are some kinks to work out in terms of it causing cancer and causing ovarian issues later down the road. She takes them off of it, but she keeps doing her charting, and she's lying, right? She's telling lies in her charts because she doesn't want these girls on this. In the time she's doing that, she's going really close with the girls, the grandmother, the family. She starts helping them get better housing, using their social services. She gets really involved. And a part of her involvement is probably to deal with her healing from her taking away her own options of motherhood. So she brings it here and tries to work it through with them. Now what happens is, yes, their life gets better, but her boss, this white woman, finds out what's going on and goes to the house while Sybil isn't at work, takes another black nurse with her to kind of build this feeling of trust, says that she's taking the girls to get their depot shots, and when she goes to take them to get their depot shots, she actually takes them to have their uterus, their tubes tied. Again, these girls are very young girls, so they go through this intense traumatic surgery, and they're basically denied their right to ever give birth. And they didn't really have a fundamental choice, And so this is what is the entire conflict. From that, because Sybil comes from very good resources and accessibility to people of high degree, she's able to get a class action suit together to fight the Alabama government and the federal government behind these sanctioned sterilizations. And she finds out that all these poor women, these colored women, are being sterilized without their true consent, and it becomes a really big deal, gets national attention, and these girls unfortunately become the face of sterilization. And so throughout the novel, you're really just watching how these events play out and how each person is affected by these events, how her father feels about, how their father feels about it, how Sybil feels about it, how the children themselves feel about it. And it's really thought-provoking. It's really thought-provoking. And what's crazy is that it's a true story, and it's not old, right? This story is probably set in the 60s or 70s. So whereas you might think, eugenics programs are from a long time ago, what we're seeing here is that not so long ago, people were being sterilized without their consent, and it's also a lot closer to home. Alabama isn't that far away from Texas and ain't that different from Texas. You know what I'm saying? The South is the South. And so it was really eye-opening for me. And I think it's a really great book. So if anybody is interested in like historical fiction, black issues, African American lit, this is a really good book to kind of get you in depth because it gives you history, literature, conflict, like all of it. Get a little romance too. Great, great, great book. The main conflict is in Montgomery, Alabama, when two young girls who are virgins are forced into sterilization. When a nurse finds out, she takes it upon herself to make sure this never happens again by starting a class action suit to get justice. So the solution of this work is a little convoluted for all parties. On one hand, you have them winning the lawsuit. You have them winning the lawsuit. And that's great. It's great for the lawyer who fights it. He's a brand new lawyer, come and gone, so he takes on more cases after that. Civil is considered like a hero in her community, but it also takes a toll, right? So the daughter, Erica, who actually endured the conflict in itself, getting the surgery, having her uterus moved, and then being like the face of this horrible, horrific event, she's having a really hard time in school and just kind of just being pubescent and being a teenager when everybody knows what happened to her and everybody is treating her like almost like a victim, and she just doesn't really want her business out there like that. And so in the end, she is having such a hard time dealing with it. She convinces her grandmother, her dad, and her sister to move outside of Montgomery to like her cousin's place to get away from the notoriety. This breaks Sybil's heart. She's very sad, and she just feels like, I mean, I love you guys. Why would you do this? And she kind of has this moment where she's kind of told, like, it's time for you to take care of your own house. Like, you've been misplacing all of your emotion and all of your energy to deal with this family, but you do have your own family to deal with, and you need to work through your issues now. Because she's used this whole opportunity as to a way to ignore that her mother's health is declining, that her and Ty haven't really reconciled at all, that her friendships are failing. Like, she doesn't want to deal with that, so she keeps dealing with work and uses work as like almost a band-aid to distract her from her real life. So the conflict, the resolution is, yes, they won the case, but the damage to their internal lives, their personal lives, becomes it stays like an open wound for the rest of the time. I think when we meet Sybil, she's an adult, kind of flashing back on this, and she's just going into detail about how like these stories that were never forgotten, the memories of these people were never forgotten, the bond she shared with them was never forgotten. Although she didn't stay in touch, she moved away. She's on a road trip visiting each one of the people that were there, and they all, remember her, love her, show her fond care, but there's like this wound there that lives within each of them from this event. So it's a win, but I think when things like this happen, the pain, you can win and justice can prevail and you can be deemed as right, but the pain remained for like each of these characters, and you see it in the actions. So I think it wants me to discuss the symbolism. Now, what's interesting here is there's a lot of symbolism. Sybil's name in itself, her name is Sybil Townsend, and that's representative of that civil rights movement that came through Montgomery, Alabama. That moral high road people tend to take, and even just her character herself, her morality, and her feelings of like, I have to do the right thing and I have to be a servant to others, and almost making herself a martyr in a lot of ways. That's her name itself is symbolic, right, of her character. In addition to that, I think we have these issues of motherhood that really come up. Like, what is a mother, right? She had these issues with her own mother, and her mother is not very motherly because she's dealing with like a deep-seated depression. And so for Sybil, she revokes her right to motherhood months before meeting these little girls, and then becomes a proxy mother all voluntarily. And it's interesting how she's choosing to heal that pain and that void and that choice by becoming a proxy. And I think that we have these ideas of motherhood that circle the story throughout that makes this really, really interesting. We also have these issues of class, right? High class versus low class versus middle class. Sybil is she comes from a very high class type of authoritative family, but then she starts to mingle with other classes. Her coworkers, more of a middle class girl, went to school, brought herself up, but it has hometown roots. We also have Erica and Erica and India and their family, who are very much notably low class, very poor. And we watch Sybil take pity on these people and tries to buy their love, and she pushes her way into their life so often to the point that she makes other people uncomfortable. Issues of education come up a lot. Like Erica and India's father doesn't read, where she's college graduated. Her father's college graduate, So you see the conflicts come up with who she's kind of spending her time with, and what is the real nature of her actions and her interest in this family comes up a lot throughout the story. And so there's a lot to kind of bite into, some thematic things and some topics that can keep you kind of thinking for a long time, truly. So I think it's really, really interesting how this whole thing plays out. Personally, I really, really love this book. And I couldn't put it down. So I was on a cruise and I just opened it and started reading, and it just kind of kept spinning. And the way that she paced it, and the conflict and the subtleties and the nuances and the questions that come up as you continue turning the page, I loved it. It was a true page turner. Her use of syntax, beautifully done. Like, she had a very smooth language. She had a very smooth use of words to where she could really convey her thoughts on the page. I love that so much. I love the depth she took with the characters. I didn't feel like I was missing a lot of character development. Like, sometimes I feel like they get rushed and pushed to the end. And I could see that the author was very thoughtful in her time and her development of each individual character and how they play into the bigger tapestry of the story. And I think she did a wonderful job of doing that. I also, like, you guys know me by now, I love any type of historical fiction was inspired by true events. So I love that she could almost bring me to Montgomery in that time period and the conflict of that time period, and even politics and respectability and the different things that happened as blacks in a community that were not monolith, that were very different, right? All of those things come up here, and she does a great job of showing you without explaining or warping your observations, just sharing the story and allowing you to interpret it in a way that works best for you. I love that. Great job. I think the writer could have wrote this book for a number of reasons. One is, as we know, our reproductive systems, are still very much up for debate, even now, even in 2023, especially in the South. And I think that it creates a dynamic to where we can look at this issue historically, look at how it's consistently affected us, how our right to choose has always been a bit of cheek and tongue statement, because, depending on your class and socioeconomic situation, you don't always get those rights. And man, it's so many reasons she could have wrote this book. Politically, because of the landscape. She could have just found this story and thought, like, wow, this is, heartbreaking. We got to tell it. I have to share this with so many women of color so they can see, I think we're in a time where people are so quick to say, like, oh, pro-choice and da-da-da. And I'm not against pro-choice at all, don't get me wrong. But to get a deeper appreciation for that, you do have the right to choose, and that some people were denied that right. It was very eye-opening for me, because I was like, I, for one, I'm always very, very pro-choice and do what you will with your body. And I think to see what happens when women aren't given a choice was startling. I mean, usually we have it backwards, right? Where women are like, oh, you better have this baby, you're a bad person. But here, what we have is these women being sterilized without their consent, and the pain that comes with that. And I think that we should be allowed to be fully aware and conscious of our choices, no matter which way you go with it. And I think that that is one of the major ideas that she pushes. Like, if you choose to have a child or you choose not to, that's a very personal, individual thought, and it shouldn't be determined because you're poor or you're deaf or you're mute or anything. Like, it should always be yours and yours alone. And I think that she does a great job of actually sharing that message with us. In addition to my right to choose and women's right to choose, I really came to terms with my own privilege. Like, I thought about the fact that I never really ever had to go through like free healthcare. Um, I've always been able to like choose my doctors, choose my healthcare, and then that gave me more rights in a way to have dominion over my body, and just the opportunity for education and how that's changed my thought process. But it also made me think about the women who, I think I've always had this idea about childbirth, and it's not a good idea, so don't kill me right now. But I've always had this really limited notion about why would you bring a child into the world? I don't know what they're doing outside, but it's making me mad. Anyway, this notion about like, why would you bring this child into the world if you can't afford to take care of it, if you're deeply destitute, if you are living in such poor conditions? Are you doing what's right for the child if you continue to bring a child into the world knowing that you don't really have the opportunities necessary to raise that child in the best way? I think what I saw from this book, I was able to check those really privileged thoughts and consider the fact that a child is an extremely personal choice. And honestly, the issue is not the people having children in poverty, but the issue is more so the act of poverty being so prevalent in our communities, because it doesn't have to be. Like, there should be more opportunities for individuals to, like, I got to a point now where as a grown woman, I think it's atrocious that so many of us are working 40 hours plus a week and are still fighting against the need to make more money. I think that's like highly toxic in our communities, and it's not about you're not good enough because you are poor, but the way people take advantage of your lack of resources, your lack of education, your lack of knowledge about how much you should be paid, and even finding somebody willing to pay you for your work. Because what we do have is a father here for Erica in India who works every single day of his life, and it is not enough to support his family. And that doesn't make sense to me. And it shouldn't make sense to anybody. I think the book made me appreciate motherhood so much more, and it made me appreciate my mother for making the choice to have me, and all the women out here who are doing everything they can to have their children, all the fathers doing so much to have their children. It made me reconsider government involvement in our reproductive organs, for sure. And it made me reconsider my trust in healthcare. Not that it was ever strong in those last two categories, but certainly I'm going to have a much more critical eye if I ever find myself in one of those places at any point in time. I absolutely think you should read the book, 100%. Read the book. Like, read the book. It is worth a read. It's so interesting to know about this, and it's a true story. If you are Black, or if you're just interested in Black literature, then this is the book that just should be on your book list for sure. I don't think this is a book for like young teenagers, but I think it's great for a women's book club. I think it's great for women around 18, 17 mark, going into college. I think that's a big place where women have to make these choices between like 17 to 22 is where you're going to see, I think, and I'm just projecting that I think that they're where the most abortions occur, right? Because these women are in college, and they're also highly sexual because they're in college and they're on college campuses, and then they are most likely are going to come into these slip knots between, am I going to have this child, or am I going to finish school and focus on my career, or what exactly, or how can I meld the two? And maybe we should stop looking at it like a choice, but like an opportunity to bring them together. So I think that that would be a great time for women to read this book, but also older women, people in book clubs. I think it's just overall a really thoughtful novel about the history of eugenics in itself. And so I think that anybody that has interest in that topic should check it out and see the damage that it has created in a number of societies and a number of demographics.